well, if we look at the mission of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Muslim ontology and the Muslim kind of view is that he was sent by God to guide us back to God and to deliver the message that God has for us as humankind, which is Islam, which is the way in which Allah has created us to live and the rules and regulations that he's created us to follow, and for us to know who the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is and follow him in implementing those rules. The Quran itself as a book was never sent in book form, but it was sent in the form of a messenger who relayed and recited the book and then applied it in action. And that was in his time, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so Sheikh Ahmad Bamba receiving the title Khadim al-Rasul, for me, it's not as much about him being and his personal relationship with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is also, which I feel is extremely mystical, and it's something that for many of us or most of us, we might not be able to have a full knowledge of or access to, because a lot of us are not open to understanding those spiritual realities. But in a practical level, when we look at Sheikh Ahmad Bamba's life, he spent his whole life in service of the message. So not only was he the servant of the messenger, but he was the servant of the message, in the sense that from his earliest years, he spent his time studying the Quran, mastering the Islamic sciences, and then the first thing he did in his teens was to start teaching it. The first thing he was doing when his father, who was also a famous teacher, Mamor Antasali, had a madrasa or an Islamic school, Sheikh Ahmad Bamba became a teacher in that school in his youth. And one of the first things he did to show, after he had mastered the Arabic language and mastered the art of poetry and the composition of poetry in the Arabic language, which is an extremely difficult science, the first thing he did was use that science to serve the students. So he would take the most difficult books of the Islamic academic curriculum and turn them into poems that could be recited and easily memorized. All of us, for example, I'm sure growing up, we all have song lyrics memorized, etched into our heads, that if we were to recite, like if they tell you recite this song from beginning to end, you'll be able to do it. There's a whole Missy Elliott album in my head right now that I know if I was challenged, I could recite from memory. Sheikh Ahmad Bamba was doing the same thing, making it easy for the students. So he was serving the deen. He was serving the Prophet ﷺ by serving his message, preserving the Islamic sciences, and then recreating new ways for us to understand and absorb that knowledge and then be able to practice it. And then he continued to do so until he established his own villages and his own schools. He established Quranic schools for people to memorize. Then he continued to teach qasaid. And then even throughout his exile, he recited poetry in praise of the Prophet ﷺ so people could greater understand who the Prophet ﷺ was and the significance that he has. And then when he returns from his exile, he takes this khidmah, this service, even further by establishing a city, Touba, which he prays will be a safe haven for Muslims, a place of knowledge, a place of sunnah. There's a poem that he wrote when he established the city before he was exiled, and it's called Matlab al-Fawzain, meaning literally seeking the success in both worlds. And it shows how he wanted to create this kind of mirror image of the paradise we're promised in the afterlife here on earth. A society fully established and fully based around the principles brought by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that was his life goal and his life mission. So in terms of him being Khadim al-Rasul, the servant of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for me, I see that manifest in his devotion to the message that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought, and in spreading the sunnah in a new context and in a new way that would be accessible to the people that he was a part of, the people in Senegal. He created many safe havens, because he doesn't just have Touba, he has Darul Musti, he has many, many villages and towns that he established before he was sent in exile, and after Darul Alim al-Khabir, Darul Qudus, etc. And his children continued that tradition of establishing these pockets, these safe havens, in a time when the traditional Wolof and Fulani kingdoms were being dismantled by the colonialists, and the French were taking power. So on both sides, you saw a complete change in society and a complete change in authority. At a time when people were used to having traditional kings in Walo, in Kajor, in Bawal, in Sin, and in Salum that they could seek refuge in and refer to, those kings had been taken away by the French, and the French were replacing the tradition and the Islam that people knew and the traditional Wolof culture that people knew with this new French culture that would treat Senegalese people as second-class citizens and aim to brainwash them and strip them of what they knew of their past. And so in this context, Sheikh Ahmed Bamba resisted by establishing these small pockets that were based on the model established by the Prophet Muhammad SAW 1400 years earlier. A town or a village where the mosque was the central place in which the children would study the Quran and then also know the ethics of working and tilling the soil and growing what they eat and being self-sufficient and dependent upon the fruit of their own labor. A society in which men and women live together in harmony according to the precepts of the Quran and the Sunnah. That was his dream, and this was the way in which he manifested his service to the Prophet ﷺ, and it's something that can still be seen today in his community. So if we go to Touba, for example, it's the second largest city. It went from being a small village established on these principles to becoming the second largest city in Senegal, and I would say the spiritual capital of Senegal. If Dakar is the economic capital, Touba definitely is the spiritual capital, because, and we know this because whenever the celebration of Sheikh Ahmed Bamba's exile happens, the Magal, the streets of Dakar are empty because everyone's in Touba. The president is in Touba, the ministers are in Touba, all the government is in Touba. Everything has moved to that city. And it's a city that is completely ruled according to the precepts of Islam. If we look at even my background picture here, this is the largest mosque in West Africa, and it's the Masaliku Jinan Mosque, built by the followers of Sheikh Ahmed Bamba and named after one of his most important poems, which is a poem on the Islamic religious sciences and purification of the heart. And so his service can be seen, yes, in his personal relationship with the Prophet ﷺ, which was his mystical encounters and his visions and his poetry, in which he praised the Prophet ﷺ and the different kind of spiritual experiences he had. And then also there's this physical aspect of him serving the Prophet ﷺ through serving the book that he brought, the Quran, serving the Prophet ﷺ by serving the Sunnah that he left behind, the example that he left behind, serving the Prophet ﷺ by empowering the religion and creating a society and a culture in which Islam is given priority and people can still see themselves and the power that Allah has given them through this religion, despite the French and the other opposing forces trying to take that away from them.